Trai Hume with the delivery. He's gone for it, you know. Oh, he scored!
Hello and welcome to Black Cats Chat, the international fans podcast for Sunderland AFC. My name is Lee Thirkell. I'm from the Bilbao Black Cats, and we're back to review a Sunderland win against West Brom, away against Tony Mowbray. It was nice to see him again. 1-0 win, and to go over that game, we've got Craig Hill for his return. Sollentuna, Stockholm in Sweden. Craig, how are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you? You okay?
It was better than last weekend, mate. Because I don't know if you know, but I don't know if you heard, but I had my phone pinched out of my pocket in Bilbao, so it's been a fucking nightmare week, mate.
Oh,
I've been trying to sync me contacts and all sorts, and trying to pay for things on Amazon, and Amazon said I need to authorize my bank. My bank gave me the authorization, and they said we've sent a code to your phone number. Can you tell us the code? I was like, I haven't got a phone.
I better order stuff on your account quickly.
Or just like give the people who pinch me phone a nudge and tell them, can you pass me the phone before you take it to Morocco or Romania? But anyway, and that voice you may have heard is a new guest. We've got Peter Showler. He's in Washington State. He's originally from Chesterley Street. Pete, welcome to the podcast. How are you, mate?
Oh, better than I deserve, lad. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Always a pleasure to have new guests on. Right then, so as we mentioned before, we got a 1-0 win yesterday. 75 points we're on now. We're getting closer to Leeds and Sheffield United again, because Sheffield United got beat off Oxford yesterday 1-0. Leeds basically thrown it away again, haven't they? With a 1-1 draw against Luton. They had a draw against
Luton.
I think they've won, like, was it 1 in 6? I heard something like that, or 1 in 5. They're not having a very good run, Leeds, are they not? So,
yeah.
But anyway, before we talk about yesterday's game, Peter, when we have a new guest on, we always like to hear their Sunderland stories, because you have been away from England for a long, long time. So we always like to hear those nostalgic memories that we all have.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I was just telling you a little bit earlier when we were just chit-chatting. I did actually coach at the football in the community back in the day with a great fella called Ted Copeland. Ted became the England women's manager, and I went on to become the England University's women's manager. So we kind of combined from the Sunderland days. Dad took me to my first game in '73. It was cold. I remember it vividly. It was cold, which is quite normal, but it was February. It could have been cold in July. And we won 4-0. It was against the Borough. I'd just turned 7. I'd been supporting since I was 6, and I'd just turned 7. It was I was in the kids' end of the Roker end, and I started top corner and I finished at bottom corner, face squished against the old railings. But boy, I loved it. 4-0 win. We went home ecstatic. I think even had a drink of a can of my dad's Vaux on the way home. So that was unbelievable. And then obviously we go on to beat Leeds in the FA Cup that same year. So that was really Roker Park in '73 in February, cold, frosty. The pies were good. The Bovril was good. The Vaux tasted good for a 7-year-old. Don't tell the child safety people over there. But rest in peace, my dad's passed away now, so they'd have trouble getting them up. You know, there was some. I was back at a Leeds game in October. I try and get back at least once a year. And a good mate of mine is Paul Atkinson. Paul played for Sunderland. A couple of stories about him I could tell you, but I'll keep those for another time. Went to the Leeds game, and as much as Myler missed that bobbly ball right in front of him and tied the game up for us, I thought that was funny. If you'd seen Paul Atkinson's jumper that day, that was funnier still. And if you go to my Facebook page, you'll catch it on there. Oh my God. Paul, obviously, being a local lad, I grew up with him, played in the same teams as Gary Robson, Paul Atkinson, a couple of the lads who went on and did well. But basically, Paul has to be in my favourite group, along with Kevin Phillips and the Mighty Quinn Disco Pants. those three have got to be kind of right up there. And I think currently Riggy would be. I just think for a young lad to come through like he has and play as many games he has, just phenomenal. And I can't go out without saying Trai Hume, the goalkeeper, the backup keeper. Trai was about 4-year-old when I played for his dad. His dad was my manager. And I love Supreme, who I do the live game-by-game tweeting on a game day for. They did an article on him. And I was at the Leeds game, and Trai and Phil I met before the game. He got us tickets into the players' lounge, and every time I get back, I'm in the Love Supreme shop, and I'm at the game. So there's not a chance that I don't take that.
Brilliant, mate. And when are you hoping to get back next? Wembley playoff
Well,
final?
It'll be October at the latest. It'll be in the autumn, or the fall, as these Americans call it. Hopefully, our red and white stripes are replacing the red and white stripes that got relegated today, Southampton. And hopefully I'm watching a Premier League game. So I'm hoping to be back in October at the latest. Got some family, elderly family. Unfortunately, if anything goes wrong on their front health-wise, I'd be back earlier. But I think October's for sure. And then, I bump into some Sunderland lads here. Where I live 20 miles outside of the second biggest town in Washington State, Spokane. But there's a Highland Games. The Americans go crazy for these Highland Games. And I MC a Highland Games up in Alaska, where I used to live. But I go to the Highland Games in Spokane, which is the second biggest city in Washington State. We're about 500,000 people. I always see two lads walking around in their Sunderland shirts. So we always stop and grab a beer and chit-chat. It's the only time I see them. But it's certainly fun keeping up with them. And all the pubs over here now are shown. I mean, I watched 2 games this morning. I watched the Southampton-Tottenham game, and then I watched the Man United derby. Every game, I can watch 7 or 8 games in a day over here. I don't know how it is in Sweden, Craig, or Spain, but and obviously when I'm live tweeting on the play-by-play, Martin McFadden's done a phenomenal job overseeing the Love Supreme magazine. So I've just really enjoyed getting caught back up in that fold, Yep,
no, absolutely brilliant, mate, and thanks for sharing your story. Right then, Craig, on to yesterday then. Listen, before the international break, I mean, we had that defeat against Coventry. It was all doom and gloom. Since then, we've come back and we've had back-to-back wins, 2 clean sheets, 2 1-0s, and suddenly it seems we're all right again. What do you reckon?
It's just strange. The whole thing's really strange right now, isn't it? It's like but we're in the playoffs. I think we're in the playoffs before yesterday, really, weren't we? So it's a case of just getting some kind of confidence into the team. But I think over the next couple of weeks, it's also going to be about trying to freshen up people as well. So we're in a unique situation, aren't we, right now? I think when you look at who we played yesterday, I think we've got a good group of players. We completely deserve to be where we are in the league, and I don't think we should forget that, despite the games like the Coventry game. You know what I mean? So no, I think going into yesterday, we've always had a decent record down there at West Brom. There was no reason why we couldn't go and get a result, and we did.
Yep. Pete, so he went with the same team, although we did have like Yelder and Lefebvre back in the squad. People are saying that we want to see Mundell, Mayenda and Isidore up front together. I just can't see it happening because I think he's worried that if one of them gets injured, we've only got one back with him, haven't we? Because
I'd agree completely. I'd agree completely. And as Craig said, I think Mogga had them playing like we play. It was 2 good sides. I don't think it was our best game, but you know what? We found a way to win. Roberts is kind of turning it on. I don't know if that couple of weeks on the bench, but he's, he can be a frustrating player at times. But Mundell, you've got Trai Hume at a left back, scoring 2 goals in 2 games. I mean, blinking heck, he's doing something right, but he's got a rotation there. He could slide Brown into the midfield if Cirkin comes back, you know what I mean? And give Rig or or Bellingham a breather if they need be. But Isidore, I mean, it's our dream to have those two up front, but he's not a 4-4-2 guy, so I don't see it happening. Not immediately. And as things stand, we'd be playing Borough if it stayed as it was, we'd be playing Borough in the first round of the playoffs, which would be a hell of an atmosphere, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Craig, on that topic of Isidore and Mayenda, I mean, obviously we haven't got a backup striker beyond that, have we not? Because Abdullahi's got injured again after he came back and had a couple of games in the reserves and presumably did well. The guy from Liverpool, Dan's, is like basically he's appearing more on social media photographs in Liverpool than he is in Sunderland. So that tells you all about him. So I think that Lebris, I think that he's got that in the back of his mind, hasn't he? That he doesn't want to play both of them because if he loses one to injury or whatever, we're kind of screwed for a backup. We're looking at Trai Ogunsuyu. I think he's also injured at the minute or coming back from injury. And then beyond that, there's the young lad called Garagusian who's doing all right in the 21s. Yeah. But I mean, you wouldn't really want to rely on them in the playoffs, would you not? The championship.
No, you wouldn't. You're right. And I think a little part of it is that as much as we'd love to see the two of them playing up front together, you know, we go one less in the midfield and we're probably going to struggle to get the ball. And I don't know. We're in the fortunate position that we could give anything a try right now, quite frankly, when it comes to actually how the formation is, because we're pretty much in the playoffs. I think the problem is more about any injuries, like you said. They are going to be our worry now. It would be good to see the two of them up front. As the season goes on, feels like Wilson is playing. He's getting just that little bit more isolated, and the creativity has probably come from the chances that come from the people in the midfield rather than what's happening up front, aren't they? So we're not going to really see that two up front unless we're chasing games, are we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Craig mentioned there that, well, you mentioned before that he's not a 4-4-2 guy. He plays the three in midfield, but do you not think that we should be getting a little bit more control or dominance in the middle of the park, given the fact that we are playing three in midfield?
Well, you'd think, I mean, at times it's five. I mean, you know, see how far Hume's getting forward and Brown's not shy in getting forward either. As long as the pair of them don't go together, we're all right. You know, it's tried and tested for us as much as if I had some hair, that'd be very grey, because when we score a goal, we just sit back and it's the fans frustrated, but we win 1-0. A win's a win at the end of the day. And as a coach, and, you know, I've coached for 30 something years now, as a coach, you'll take the win any time, no matter how ugly it is. And he's got it right. And with Lefebvre getting back to fitness, he's going to be fresh. I mean, he's going to terrorize teams in the last few weeks. But again, I would hold him off a little bit and just bring him into the game so he's got fresh legs when it gets to the playoffs, in my opinion. But I just think the 3 or the 5, you know, we defend well as a 5 and we counterattack really well. So I wouldn't change too much as I'd like to see us with 2 players up top. I just don't think our system, our players currently, and our lack of depth in terms of amount of games the young'uns have got behind them, you know, and as much as I loved his comments about Watson, I think Watson will give everything while he's still here. It's still hard for the fans to take, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. And Craig, he made a good point there, saying, like, for example, when we do score a goal, we do seem to sit back, and the performances for a good while have been less attack-minded as they were compared to early in the season. And I remember a comment from Christian Speakman saying that when they were looking for a coach, they had like a particular identity in mind. Right? They wanted someone to kind of resemble what Sunderland fans want, which is basically attacking football, a hard tackle, a strong tackle. And I think that's how we started the season, isn't it? We started like that with high intensity, but we've kind of drifted like slowly, little downwards to a bit more defensive, a bit more conservative. Is that, I don't know, is that just a natural process or is it because of injuries? What do you think? Why do you think that is?
Well, the thing is, I mean, without them coming out and explaining any particular changes. You'd never know. But if you look at the difference of yesterday's game to say the Plymouth away game, a game we should never have lost. We lost out of pure naivety, conceded a goal last few minutes because we're trying to get the winner. Yesterday, if we've seen that kind of performance, as much as like Tony Mowbray, but we've seen a lot of that when he was with us. They probably, if they were still playing now, they would never have scored, I don't think. Do you know what I mean? So maybe we've lost that naivety. There's a few blocks going in there, but we're pretty well organised once we go one up. We're not the easiest team to come from behind against, are we? And I think earlier in the season, it was nicer to watch. We weren't the type of team, we were trying to win every game. Now I feel like we just got that bit more solidity about us when we scored that first goal. So, of course, it's always going to be nervous when we're only winning games by a goal, and we've won a lot by a goal. But we're fourth top on merit. Something's been done right, isn't it?
Yep. No, and you made some good points there, especially about the defending, the organisation. I mean, Peter, yesterday, West Brom had 19 shots off target, 3 on target, and 9 were blocked. So, as Craig mentioned, it did sound like a bit like a Tony Mowbray Sunderland performance where we got a 0-0, didn't we? We couldn't score.
I know. I mean, if we win the next 8 games 1-0, we'll be in the Premier League, and fans won't think once about a 1-0. But when you're a fan watching, and when I'm doing the play-by-play, it's hard to stay so positive when you're constantly under attack. And we know how Pato was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was making blunder after blunder. But then he'll pull off some worldly saves as well. So, but having Chris Meffam in the back is just phenomenal. And obviously, O'Nien will just, as we know, he'll just put everything out there for us. And Trai Hume, what a wizard sliding him at left back. I mean, who would have thought? So he'll have a dilemma when Serkin's back, unless he just slides Brown back into midfield or has him on the bench to come in as fresh legs. But things are looking good, and they're very well organised at the back. I'll give them that. Very well organised.
Mm-hmm. Craig, he mentioned, Peter mentioned Anthony Patterson had a couple of bad games. He had the incidents at Leeds, then they had like the clanger against Hull at home, and people were calling him for him to be dropped, bring Simon Moore back in. I was actually one who was kind of saying, listen, he's made a couple of mistakes, but I don't think on the whole he hasn't done much wrong. I think he's been all right. His kicking's a bit hit and miss sometimes, but I think a lot of that comes down to the pressure that he gets from the players who give him suicide balls. The SAFC Twitter feed today announced that it was his 50th clean sheet for SAFC yesterday. 13 have been this season. So I think he deserves a lot of credit, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's still a young lad at the end of the day, and you've got to think the way that we are as a club, we're going to play lads who haven't reached the potential, who are going to make mistakes, and that's what you're going to get. It's not just him. We've seen it with some of the midfield lads as well. Ultimately, if we are going to end up, without wishing to sound negative, if we're going to sell these players on for 15, 20 million, they're not going to be sold for that money unless they're playing games. And the only way they'll learn is through making mistakes. The biggest mistake I thought he made yesterday, which Danny Collins kept going on about, was I just wish he put a cap on in that first half. Because I'm sure he missed 2 balls just because of spin in his eyes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on the whole, he didn't really have that much to do. So it probably wasn't the best game to judge him on either, because it was absolutely, they just huffed and puffed, and they had lots of shots, but I don't remember more than 2 or 3 where I thought it was of any danger,
Yeah. Peter, you mentioned before Chris Mepham. I mean, a goalkeeper doesn't get his clean sheet bonus unless he has a good defence in front of him. And Chris Mepham, as you mentioned before, he was immense, wasn't he? He was like putting his body on the line, blocks all the time. What a signing, right?
Oh, brilliant. And I think we should sign him permanently. Keep staying up, or if we don't go up, sign him permanently. But if we go up, I think he'd be, we'd obviously have to improve in some areas, but you've got Dan Ballard can't get a game. You know what I mean? And Ballard didn't do anything wrong. He got injured, hasn't been able to come back, and then they slipped him in a couple of times for Mepham. But Mepham playing for Wales the other day was outstanding. And I think that's transferred to the experience he brings and gives the young'uns around him. mean, it's hard to believe Trai Hume's as young as he is, and now he's got 50. He's getting goal after goal, and he's playing regularly for his country. So with so many youngins, and go back to what Craig was saying, it's like you can't be super negative, but you sell Watson. He's played 14 games for us. You sell him for 10 million. I don't blame the lad. I don't blame the club, but it's a gamble on Brighton's behalf to sign a lad who's played 14 games, but there's a lot of upsides, So what is Chris Rigg worth? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hopefully we get promoted and we don't have to sell these players,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the point I'm going to come on to later about Tommy Watson and also Rigg and other players like Sirkin and Dan Neil who are going to be entering the final year of the contracts who haven't signed, and it seems that negotiations have been stopped for the moment. But Craig, then, so it was a bit of a dampener on the match, wasn't it? That Romain Mundle got another injury.
Yeah.
It looks like the same hamstring as last time. Just before he got injured, he had a good shot from 23 minutes where it just went wide from the post. How big of a blow is that? Because if he's got another hamstring injury, I mean, the last time they said, 6 to 8 weeks, and he was out for 13 or 12.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. If he's out for the same length of time as he was last time, as you say, I think got injured in November. He came back, I think, February. So, next 2 or 3 days, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But it's a massive issue, I think. We have got some strength and depth, not just with Tommy Watson. You could potentially play Mayenda there. Lafille played most of his games on the left, so you couldn't say it's the end of the world. But I just felt yesterday, the odd time he got the ball, he had the beating of that fullback. I think it was scored ironically after he went off the pitch, but I think it'd be a big blow if he was missing for the rest of the season, that's for sure. So hopefully this week we'll get some good news on it, but he didn't look, he knew straight, you could tell straight away it was the same problem because he just didn't look happy at all, did he?
no, he didn't. And I think Danny and Frankie mentioned on commentary that Tommy Watson had been warming up and Mayenda had been warming up before that. So they must have kind of had a feeling that he felt a twinge. Pete, then, so Mayenda came on, which was quite a surprise because everyone thought the most natural person to come on was Tommy Watson. Were you surprised that Mayenda was on ahead of Tommy Watson in that situation?
Yes and no. I mean, I think Mayenda brings so much positivity to the attacking side. It lends itself to a 4-4-2 when he gets in there. And I don't know if you watched last week's game, but Rigg was almost playing as a second forward at times. So by throwing him in there, you hopefully get West Brom on the back foot. Now, to be honest, I don't think it was our best attacking game yesterday, and our defending was tremendous. But we build on that and we counter-attack so quickly. And you got Isidore on him up top, in and around the top, and you keep him as the second player off the ball on set pieces that we're defending. We can break at pace. I mean, I know Mundle does that, but I think Mayenda just has a different approach to getting the goal. So it's a tough one, but I don't think Watson has that experience in those types of games where we've got to try and kill a game off. And I think Watson will be a little bit more on the back line, not because of his imminent transfer, but I just think it's that experience. And I think Mayenda adds that. And I think he plays so well around Isidore. As Craig was saying earlier, we'd all love to see him 2 forwards and see what we do, but now is not the time to do that when we've had success playing as we've played,
No, I couldn't agree more with that. Right then, Craig. So the boy from Ballymena whacked in a bullet, didn't he, with that free kick?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, like the last few weeks or the last month or so, I get the feeling that it has been a bit of the Trai Hume show for Sunderland FC and the social media content because he's been playing well for the Republic of Ireland. He had the little short film thing about him on Boy from Ballymena. The choir, like the local choir in his town have made a song about him, like ABBA. So I'm actually really chuffed for him because I think he's had like a cracking season and he's been like a solid 7 every single game. So how would you rate Trai Hume going forward and that goal yesterday?
Well, to be fair, the ball he put in, he's done just what people like Declan Rice have been doing all season for Arsenal. I mean, you kind of put it in a better area. The fact that the goalie made a right mess of it, well, that's another thing. But you put a ball in that area, someone's going to get a touch on it, or it's going to go straight in. I mean, they're very difficult to defend. He probably had a bit of luck that every time Roberts took a set piece in the first half an hour, that didn't really end well. So I think he's took the ball off him and said, "I'm having this one," and he's ended up putting it in the back of the net. And I think that he's just a great character. You can tell he loves this, and I think he's typical of one of the lads who, if we were to get promoted, he'd stay. Do you know what I mean? I think if I don't think they'd let more than a couple go if we didn't go up. But he's the type of lad who you think there's no need for him to go to a bigger club than us. Like, he's just that type of player. I think if we went up, he'd be more than happy at Sunderland, just playing Premier League football. And he's great. He's just a brilliant character, isn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Peter, I mean, yeah, Trai Hume, what we signed him for, 250 grand from Linfield, I think it was, something like that. I mean, that guy's living the dream, isn't he? Like, going from Linfield to Sunderland, the facilities, the history of the club, and he's now like one of the first names on the team sheet, a fan favourite, puts in tackles like Kevin Ball. I mean, you wouldn't expect him to be a person that would force a move, would you not? You'd expect him to kind of like be loyal to a certain extent.
He's just that down-to-earth, level-headed lad. I love the tash. He's got a little bit of, about him. I don't know if he's trying to look a bit older, but it doesn't work. But he doesn't need to. He's playing with an old head on young shoulders, really. He's still relatively young. And if we didn't go up, I think as much as I think we'd like, I think there'd be a lot of clubs after him. I do. But I think with his upbringing and the way he was, I agree with Craig, he would be the lad likely to stay. You know what I mean? He tackles like Lee Thirkell, he tackles like Bally, he does all those things, but he gets up and down like a fiddler's elbow. He's often beyond Roberts and putting that ball in, and the amount of he varies the type of cross he puts in. Like 2 weeks ago, he put the little ding crosses, and I'm like, that's like a midfielder, And he reminds me of Trent Alexander. He kind of has so many tools in his toolbox. He just pulls them out, and I should be surprised now, but I'm not.
Yep. And Craig, special mention for Alan Brown because he has filled in at right back.
Yeah.
He had a bit of a tough game, didn't he, yesterday against Mikey Johnston, who gave him a bit of a tough time, but I thought he did well. And that, in the end, Mikey Johnston got subbed off in the second half. So I thought it was like a kind of job well done, wasn't it, from him?
Yeah, I felt the same, actually. He didn't really get beaten by him much. He did get caught out of position the odd time, but he didn't really get beaten for skill by him. He just had that experience, if you like. Just keep pushing him inside, and ultimately, I think it was after about 70 minutes. I think Moby just had enough of him. He just dragged him off, didn't he? He just didn't have the quality, or the final ball just wasn't quite there. So he did a good enough job. He's clearly not. I wouldn't like to say how much he played there for Preston, but he's one of those dependable blokes. He's a bit like what you said earlier on, like a 7 out of 10 bloke, isn't he? And I think he's done pretty well since he came back in from injury.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, so after Mundell went off then on the 31st minute, about 6 minutes later, Job was down with a knock and receiving treatment, and I was thinking, okay, here we go again. Yeah. So this brings me to one of my gripes about Lebris is basically his rotation and like giving other players a chance, like Alexic and so on. Are we running the risk of like burning out these lads completely before the playoffs come around, like the likes of Rig, Neil? Because like Neil was like blown out of his ass yesterday. You could see he was puffing away. So
well, that I was thinking on that line that Lee you could always slide Helder in there and put Brown into Job's position. And Brown, to me, is more of a holding midfielder than Neil is. Although Dan Neil's been outstanding, even though he doesn't get the plaudits, he does from us as a club. But if I'm a neutral watching Dan Neil, what he does on and off the ball is incredible. So I was thinking that while watching the game, is like, if he goes down, does he slide Brown in there and put Hjelde on, and then Hume goes back to right back? I think held his own yesterday as well. He comes on and does a good job,
And we never get beat.
No, we don't. I mean, as Craig was saying earlier, we do have strength in depth, even though there's some young lads. There's still some depth in there. And when you've got people like Brown with his experience, who you can just slot in a couple of different positions, and we know Luke O'Nien could go and play a centre mid role if we needed to. That's where he started. So I think there's some still little bits of tinkering going on. It's sad that Mundell got that injury, but we forget how young Job is as well. And boy, he just motors along. I mean, that midfield three really don't get the credit they do outside of our own club. I just don't think. I just don't think they get there. Well, I just want to make one point though, while we're on this, Lee. Farke's he did a Kevin Keegan, didn't he? When he said we're going to win the league. He did. We're going to win the league. They haven't won a game since.
Leeds are falling apart again. Right then, so Craig, I rewatched the match back this morning on the full 90, and to be honest, like the first half, it wasn't too bad. I thought. I mean, yesterday when you're watching it live, you get a different opinion when you watch it back and you think, and you've won, and I suppose it helps.
Yeah.
But I thought yesterday, as we mentioned before, we were very organised. So I think like the first half was like a solid away performance. Going to the second half though, Craig, I thought we lost our discipline, our shape a little bit. We were playing more long balls than like the Terry Butcher play manager era. I mean, I was going back to that. I was like, so
I'll have nightmares. How
no, there was a bit of lack of composure on the ball in the second half. What do you put that down to?
I don't know. I think unfortunately, it's happened at various points throughout the season. It's not often we'll put together a full good 90 minutes on the ball anyway. I don't think those three lads in midfield are the type of lads who are going to just keep the ball. They're not quite at that level. Maybe Dan Neil is. I think they're more like what Pete said earlier. They're a little bit more dynamic than that. Like when Joe broke in the first half with the ball and all of a sudden he's around 50 yards with it. I think that's more his game. Keeping the ball, keeping a 1-0. I think the back four, back five have been highly responsible for that rather than ball retention, So it's happened throughout the season. It's frustrating. I don't know what the exact possession stats were. But at the same time, you earn that right to sit back when you score the first goal as well, don't you? Ultimately. And I think it just ended up being hard work and hard graft that got us through in the end. It'll come. We're trying to play possession football, but I just think we're just lacking someone who's just for next season. I'd like to see someone who's just played in the Championship or the Premier League, even better, played at a good level, who's just put the foot on the ball, keep the ball, and I don't think we've got enough of those players. I think we're a bit more of a young flair team rather than anything else,
Yep, no, absolutely. And Pete, Lebreche yesterday in his post-match interview with the BBC said that it was a satisfying result because sometimes in the past with a performance like that in the second half, we may have lost it. So he was kind of pleased with like the character of the team, that they could see the win through, because obviously we've had some results this season where we've been leading at half-time and we've thrown leads away, haven't we? So what would you make of those comments from Lebreche about the character of the team and saying that we would have lost that game some months ago?
Well, I mean, Craig touched upon it earlier. I mean, that Plymouth game, and then you look at the Leeds game, we concede 2 in a few minutes, you know what I mean? And so Dan Neil does so much. If you look when Pato gets the ball, because we've talked about Pato's footwork, it's not the best. Sometimes it's what he's dealing with or what he's being given as a back pass. But But often Dan Neil is almost beyond our centre backs to pick that ball up. And he goes and tries and builds from there. But Job wants to be in the box, and Riggs off now in the right wing. So having the discipline of Meffam and 09 gives Dan Neil the springboard, but you'll often find him almost in that back four. But we need it, because we'll take those 1-0 wins. And to answer your question, I think playing against your old boss, nearly all of our players played for Mowbray. Everyone has the ultimate respect for Mogga, and he plays entertaining football. So for us to go into a game like that, I know there's kind of different pressures that we don't see, but I'd take a 1-0 win. I don't know when we were last plus 20 in goals. I don't know when we were.
Yeah,
there's a good few seasons in the past, but we're at plus 20, and that doesn't happen by chance, So I think there's a lot to be said. As much as a fan, it's hard to watch. It will take a 1-0 win anytime. So it's just an interesting one, because as a fan, you want to see more goals and you want to see the pressure relieved. But I think the discipline we've shown has been fantastic.
I think as well, we don't want to have any health scares as well, because that's what it gives me when we get 1-0 wins like that, mate.
Yeah.
Like,
can I go and let me dog out?
Aye, go on, let him out. Right then, Craig, the second half for us yesterday, there wasn't much to cheer about in terms of attacking, but there were some talking points, were there? I mean, like, Mayenda got a yellow for diving, which I thought was absolutely baffling, because he didn't dive. I mean, listen, it wasn't a penalty, but it wasn't a dive. There was contact, but it wasn't a dive, was it not?
No, definitely not. It was harsh. I agree. I don't think it was a penalty either, but it was ridiculous. The poor lad just looked flummoxed, really, didn't he? But at the same time, as I said with Mundell in the first half, I do think he had the beating of him, but because we just kept dropping kind of deeper and deeper, we never really seen him have a go at that right back at that furlong. So yeah, it was never a yellow card, was it?
Yeah, no, we were just talking about the penalty, because like West Brom were trying to get a penalty in the first half, weren't they? I mean, they were trying to get our players booked left, right, and centre. I mean, I remember that Mikey Johnston, he got fouled, went down because Meppen came through him, and then literally like 5 seconds later, he just jumped up and started running again. And so they were dived all over the place. And then Peter, like Bartley from their team, centre back, did like a tackle on Isidore, which didn't even get a yellow. Now, I don't think it was a red. I think like he didn't get the ball. He hurt the play. He went, but it wasn't a red. But I think he should have got a yellow for that, shouldn't he?
He should have. I'm not a fan of VAR, but they're the situations where if they looked at that, it would be a definite yellow. But I just don't like how long it takes for those decisions to be made. And what was that, 7 minutes in the Premier League the other day for one decision? And I still think they got it wrong. But it was definitely a yellow, yeah. And there was a lot of diving in. And I think what Craig said, I think if Mundell had got it Furlong, and if he'd stayed fit and healthy and was on, I think Furlong would have been chopping away at him most of the game, because he was turning them inside out. And they were probably thankful that Mundell went off. But definitely a yellow. And I think in that first 30 minutes, we had their back line at 6s and 7s. And then when Mundell went off, we kind of just sat back into that, not necessarily right after the goal, but after about 30, 35 minutes, we just kind of sat back in the shell and didn't come out of that, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, in the end, we kept our shape, we kept our discipline, we got the 1-0 win. And Craig, after the match, Lebrice's comments were the first half was okay. We scored a brilliant goal through Trai after that because they needed to win. They pushed and took risks. We were under pressure and we probably need to improve our ability to keep the ball and show more composure. At the same time, our defensive effort and willingness to work and manage the game was impressive. It's really important to have this mindset in the final part of the season. It's not just about playing, it's about winning. He continued. We showed good quality in that area today. We also showed character because it was a battle against 3, 4, or even 5 strikers at the end. In those circumstances, you can talk about tactics, but really it comes down to character, mindset, and the desire to protect our goal.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you think about the last 10 minutes, they just run out of ideas. They went so direct. Obviously, they've got that lad who can, Furlong can put in them long throws as well, but they just were running out of ideas. So again, clearly we're doing something right. And even though there was a lot less injury time in the second half, it was only 4 minutes, we're seeing that out relatively comfortably. So I don't know. I think the one thing I would say is even when we put in a bit of a patchy attacking performance like yesterday, we still create chances. We still find a way. I mean, we've always got that little bit of quality. I mean, Lafay's first and second touch was putting Isidore in. On another day, he puts that in. Like he's got the quality to put that in that far corner. So even when we're not going for it, attacking wise, we have got that quality. Dan Neil has always got that pass in him to just. So I don't know. As I said, you kind of earn that right when you score the first goal, and the longer the game went on, you couldn't see they were any closer to scoring, really.
No, I don't think so. It was just basically they was like throwing the kitchen sink, and they were never going to score. Yeah.
Well, I would just say,
go on, Peter.
Lee, I would just say on Craig's point there. 2 weeks, so last week's game, the amount of balls that flashed across the front of the goal, we were putting quality deliveries in from all over. Yeah. And we are creating those chances. It's just for some reason, perhaps it's just having the one forward that, I'll go back a few weeks now when Serkin was playing. Serkin will always get in that back post run. It's not maybe Trai Hume's. He does it on the right, but I don't know why he doesn't feel as comfortable doing it on the left, but we can't complain. He's got 2 goals in 2 games. But we are putting those balls in dangerous areas, and I wonder if it's just having one striker is the reason we're not getting more from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But there were a few times just on the counter where like Job was bringing it forward, and it was basically Job, Robertson, and Isidore against 5 of their defenders. And I was thinking, like, if we could get maybe a few more numbers up there, it would help. But yeah. But anyway, Peter. So I'll give you the comments from Trai Hume and Lee Thirkell post match. First, Trai Hume, he said, "It's obviously nice to score, but the most important thing is getting the 3 points. Performances matter, and everyone wants to play well. But at this stage of the season, the most important thing is the result, and we're just glad to get that." And he went on to say, "We've got another tough game coming up midweek against Norwich. I'm glad we got the 3 points, but the focus turns straight to the next one. The key thing is to keep winning games and pick up as many points as possible." Now, the thing is, though, is that he says there about the most important thing is the result and the 3 points. But is the performance as well not important going to the playoffs, you think?
Obviously, it is. I mean, you want to be playing well and getting results. But if you don't play well and you still get a win, I'd take a scrappy win over playing fantastic and getting a draw, or playing fantastic and losing. So I think Trai Hume's been reading Mourinho's book, because the fans, we want to see flowing, fast football. We saw it through under Mogga, and we saw it at the beginning of the season. And that's why we're at a plus 20 goal difference right now. And that's why we're in 4th when, October we were well top of the league. But at the end of the day, if you ask any fan, they'd rather be promoted than get a fancy 4 or 5-0 win. And again, it's not pretty. It's not what the fans want to see. But if it gets us where we need to be, I'm comfortable with that.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Craig, I'll give you Leo Kjelder. He said, "It was a good match. I'm happy to contribute as much as I can this season. And as Trai said, it's practically 6 cup finals left. So I'm just pleased to be back and help the team." And talking about the fans that travelled to the match yesterday, which was like cracking back, and I think like they sold out 2,000 or 3,000 at least. They've backed us all season, and we're so thankful for them. They give us a lift again today. They're all like our 12th man out there. So, Craig, the comment where he makes there, it's practically 6 cup finals.
Yeah.
It's a bit of an odd comment, isn't it? Because is he referring to like playoffs? Or is he kind of like got a secret belief that we can get top 2?
I think it's 6 cup finals for him because he's trying to get in the team. I think that's what it's more to the point.
Yeah.
But I just wonder what will happen if we still will win tomorrow night. You can't tell me that we're going to be looking at who we could play because that's completely out of your hands. So I think they'll be professional enough to do it that they're mathematically in the playoffs first. I don't think they'll be thinking today, right, we're there. And I think when they're mathematically in the playoffs, that's when you'll see how they're going to use the squad for the rest of the season. But I think it's going to be maybe a game or two before you start seeing that. I mean, I think with Lafay, for example, just like basically what you said earlier on, Pete, about bringing them back in gradually, that's got to be the way to do it. The only difference is does he see him playing in the middle in the playoffs?
I know.
And that's what everyone's taking for granted. That's what he's going to do. I was convinced at the Hull game when he got injured that he was going to do that in the second half, perhaps, and then he come off. So it's not 6 cup finals, is it? It's a case of being mathematically certain. Then we'll see, is someone going to get rested? It's impossible to get it just right. So you've got the confidence and the fitness going into the playoffs. There's always going to be someone getting injured in the championship. So, but we are in a unique position now. You could argue we're still going for the top 2 mathematically as well, but we're in a unique position where we can try and give these lads a bit of a breather, and the young lads, and they probably need it as well, to be fair. So,
Yeah, and on that point, Peter, do you agree with Craig that it should be like we should be taking advantage of this unique position and giving some lads a breather and giving some lads minutes, like Alexic, for example?
Absolutely. I don't want to jinx us because we're 15. We're 15 points clear, so we'd have to lose 5 of the 6 games, and then everyone behind us would have to win all those 5. As a coach, I look at all those things, but the way we play, I just don't see that happening. The second thing is, I think the youngins, not necessarily even the youngins, Watson is young, but he's still got more experience than some of the young lads coming out there. And Hjelde he's got that experience, really. So there's no harm in putting them out there. But I just think the way Labrie, in my opinion of how I see what how he's coached, it's hard to see him changing anything.
Yeah.
And Craig's right. There might be 6 FA Cup finals or whatever for Hjelde because he hasn't been playing, and that's probably a little mind game trying to get in the coach's head. But why change anything that we're doing?
Yeah.
And like I say, in 8 games' time, we could be in the Premier League. So let's not change too much. Give a player or two, half a game. But we know he doesn't make subs at 60 minutes unless he has to. It's usually 70, 75. I wish there was a bit more of the switching it a little bit earlier. Not necessarily at half time, but, 55 minutes in. But it doesn't seem to be his MO. So But I wouldn't tinker too much with what we're doing because it's working.
Yeah.
And if you're a 17-year-old and you can't play 8 more games, hopefully, then you shouldn't be 17-year-old and playing at this level. And I know Chris Rigg will give everything he's got. So I'm just using Riggy as an example there. But you've got young lads who run through a brick wall. You've got your older players like O'Nien who run through a brick wall. So I don't think it's a question of rest, but it does no harm to rotate those just to give them some freshness when it comes to the big games.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think there's probably more of a chance, playing 2 games a week, whether it be championship football or even non-league football. I think it's not even a fitness thing anymore. I think it's how many of them are carrying knocks, how many of them are just playing at 80% at the minute. we're in this unique position. There's probably someone out there who will tell you that we're already in the playoffs because someone has to play someone else. There'll be people taking points or so. I don't think anyone's worked that out, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's impossible even for us to finish seventh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
There was a post like that the other day, actually. I think it was like
Was
someone
there?
said Coventry have to play West Brom or something like that. So God knows.
Yeah.
But no, Craig, I want to come to you because talking about like potential playoff rivals, semi-final, final, etc. I mean, after the Leeds game when we got beat, right?
Yeah.
Who would have envisaged that Leeds now 2 points off the top? Do you know what I mean?
It's crazy. I'm not surprised that Burnley's ended up being top because they're just ultra consistent. But yeah, I mean, as to who we're playing, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm slightly worried about Coventry, not just because they've got such a good record against us, but I think the way they play, I think they've got a midfield that keeps the ball pretty well, and I think we struggle with that. Even though we were awful the other week, I thought at the back Coventry aren't actually that great, but we didn't really get at them. The rest of the teams, I think, will give us a chance to play. We've played really well against Sheffield United. We've got 4 points off Burnley. I'd rather play Leeds in a one-off game at Wembley than over 2 legs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my concern with Leeds. But I don't know. I do fancy us to score goals more against teams who want to play football.
Yeah.
I think we'll generally do better against a team like Borough than what we would do against a team like Millwall.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
well, I just don't think you can look. I don't think you can worry about it too much. We've got a really good record against most of those teams at the top this season, and we could go into it with every confidence, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Right. So, Pete, we mentioned it before then. Tommy Watson, he's been the topic of the week because there was talk in January that he went down for talks in Brighton. It fell like down out of last minute move fell out of favor, didn't it? And there was rumors on the ready to go fans forum, the middle of March, around the 16th of March, someone posted saying don't rock the boat, but apparently Tommy Watson's agreed to move to Brighton at the end of the season. And there we go, 2 or 3 weeks later, it's been confirmed by the club, which seems like a very odd time, doesn't it? I mean, what do you think the reason is for that?
I have a question to you lads and to everyone out there. When did clubs and players used to announce these things in season?
Yeah.
It never used to happen.
No.
It never used to happen.
It's the first time I can remember it happening with us, to my knowledge, anyway.
I'd agree, Craig. I'd agree. And you got Trent Alexander-Arnold's one of the best players in the world at his position. Still haven't announced where he's going. He'll probably end up at Real Madrid. We kind of know that, but his agent hasn't come out and said anything. You know, so it's a tough one. I mean, I really don't blame Watson. You got a chance of a Premier League contract, which brings good money, and they've got a great youth set up there, and they're very supportive. So I think, all good to him. It's just the announcement and the timing is just so off. I just don't think it's fair to the club. But he's got to live with that now, and it's how the fans deal with that. And I do think he'll still give everything to get us up there whenever he's given the opportunity. It's just, I think that's a lot of pressure to now put on a young player's head if he gets the opportunity to come and play for us.
Yeah. Craig, I mean, he is 18 years old. He has shown some glimpses of talent, raw talent. He scored 2 goals, I think he's done, and he had that injury. Can you see him having much of a role to the end of the season? Because from what I've been told about Lebris, he is a person that if something pisses him off, he does hold a bit of a grudge against him, and that's pretty evident with the way he kind of dealt with Aushish. Because you know what I mean, they gave him a chance, and he was out the door. And I don't know if you know that I received a message from a friend of Aushish, a private message on X, it was like a French-speaking profile speaking to me, and he was like, Labrice has told how she stanks, but like doesn't seem in his plans. And apparently it's something to do that went on between them at their old club, Lorient.
Yeah,
So do you think? And yesterday, obviously, Watson didn't come on. Alexic came
yeah.
on. Can you see Labrice doing something similar that it's upset him a little bit, maybe?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, he was the obvious replacement for Mundell, wasn't he? So only he will know what's happened there. But I don't know. It does seem strange. I think the fact he's on the bench because he probably realizes he will have to use him at some point. It's a case of how much he's going to use him. With regards to him actually going, I think I would have been a lot more disappointed if this had been Mundell leaving 2 months before the end of the season or someone else. He's so young that we've not really seen yet what we're going to miss out on. So it's probably not a bad move for all parties, really. But I don't know. We've got a lot of players who can play in that position. Wilson Isidore can play in that position. Mahenda can play in that position. Lefebvre can play. We've got so many options there that I wonder why he was in the squad, and I wonder why he wasn't brought on. You're not going to. Only the next few games are going to tell you what he's really thinking about that, I think.
Pete, you mentioned before about Watson. Then that he's going to go to Brighton. He's probably going to get more money. He's going to go to a Premier League club, which is like got a good model. They give youth a chance like us. But is he not playing running a bit of a risk that he's unlikely to play at Brighton next season in the Premier League?
Well, look at Jack Clark. Look at Jack Clark at Ipswich.
Yeah.
He gets 10, 15 minutes if he's lucky. And we know what Clarkey was, how good he was. And you take a chance at a smaller club like Ipswich. It's just, you don't blame these kids. And I use that term very loosely because they're good enough, but it's a big gamble to take because you could stay at Sunderland. And I mean, we've benefited. We had Mundell when he was fit come in and light things up. But Jack Clark was just, a model for that process. And he's gone in with more experience to a Premier League team and hardly seen much game time. And they're not doing well. So it's a tough one. I know one of my former players runs the academy at Brighton, and they've got some phenomenal players coming through. So why take a Sunderland player who's come through the academy? You know what I mean? But you look at our bench, and they're all academy kids, which is phenomenal, and it's testament to what we've done. I mean, I feel bad for Doddsy because he's gone to Wickham, and now they're out, out of the top two spots there. But I think Labrice has missed him a little bit, and he did wonders when he was involved with the academy. But when I was back in October, I talked to Danny, and Danny's still working in the academy, and he loves those young players. And we're doing the right thing, but how many of those players are going to come through and see playing time for us? Ultimately, if we're not going to go up, if we don't go up, I have every confidence we will. If we don't go up, how many of those young players are going to where can I go next? What can be my big money move? And I think a lot of it's on the agents.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Craig, I mean, Tommy Watson, he goes to Brighton next year. I don't think he's going to be playing first team football next year. He's most likely to be sent out on loan, according to their fans on social media. But then again, he could be second choice left winger for Sunderland in the Premier League, potentially. So as Pete mentioned, it is a big gamble, isn't it?
I think from his point of view, you'd probably think, okay, he's going to be on a very good contract down there, you'd have thought. Plus, if he does end up out on loan to a championship team, he's probably going to play as much there as what he would at Sunderland. So for him as a footballer, it's probably there's not many downsides. And if it doesn't work out for him at Brighton, he'll probably still end up back in the championship permanently. So from that perspective, there's probably not a downside. I think you look at people like Dan Neil, who, some supporter. I don't know how much of a some supporter Tommy Watson is. You never really know. But With Dan Neil, I think it's a different thing. It's a bigger thing to leave the club. Do you know what I mean? So I think some of these lads come through the Sunderland Academy. It's how much of them is it? How much of them want to stay at Sunderland? That's for a period of time, you know. Ultimately, some will get a chance to further their career on very, very good money elsewhere. Speakman, though, has said in the past they won't let more than 3 players go during a season. And as long as that money's invested, I mean, this could also be the summer when you think about it. Get 10 million for Watson. If we were to say sell another 1 or 2, we, for the first time, will have a lot of player sales to reinvest. Because when you look, Jack Clark, Ross Stewart, that wasn't big money. But we could be now talking of getting 40, 50 million in. You reinvest half of that and put the other half in something else, you should be building a promotion team with that if we don't go for this season. So as long as there's not this grand fire sale and we're selling 5, 6, 7 players, I haven't got a huge problem with it, to be honest with you. Although there's certain ones I'll be very sad to see go, particularly Dan Neil, you know.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, Tommy Watson, he's been at the academy since he was 6, and now he's 18. So, Pete, on a final word on this, then, it does seem a little bit disappointing from a personal point of view, from a Sunderland fans' perspective, that a lad that's been there since 6 has played 14 games is suddenly leaving. You know what I mean? It leaves a bit of a bitter taste, doesn't it?
It does, but if you're a player, you want to play. But then it goes back to what Craig's saying and what you said earlier, Lee. Is he going to go to Brighton and play? No, he's not. He's probably not. Looking at their current team now, if he gets farmed off to another championship team, then why not stay at Sunderland and fight for your spot? And as you get a year older, you're stronger, you're fitter, you know the processes in the program. Why not stick with that? But from a financial standpoint, for him and probably his agent, it's a big move. You know, if he's getting 6-7% of that 10 million, he's going to have £600,000-700,000 under his belt at 17, 18-year-old. I mean, you don't blame the lad.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, those kids are born and bred and lived and breathed Sunderland. It's hard to understand why they would do that when you look at a Dan Neil, you know, and those players who were just born. And you look at our bench. I mean, there's 5 lads there that have come through the academy that they're chomping at the bit to get in there. So it's a double-edged sword. I don't blame the lad, but what's he going to gain from it? He'll end up playing championship soccer, football. Sorry, I say that every day over here. Championship football for, you know, a season or 2. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully he goes there and does well. But it's hard when you've spent 12 years in an academy. And I used to coach those football in the community kids and everybody, like my buddy and my mate, Paul Atkinson, everyone wanted to play for our home club. And then suddenly, you know, that happens. It's just hard to take. It's hard to take, but I don't blame him as a young'un. But I think it's very much led by the agents these days, sadly.
Absolutely.
And do you not think his agent might be saying as well, you know, you could break your leg tomorrow as well, son, you know what I mean? And that's
what happened, Aki, you know.
It's that sort of thing, isn't it? So it is. And I think we also, unfortunately perhaps, we're also the type of club that you couldn't see us getting players loaned back to us. We're a bit too proud for that. I don't think any of us really want to be seeing the Tommy Watson come back here on loan. You know, I think, you know, Ross Stewart at one time might have come into the mix there as well with that. And it's just not us. I couldn't see a day when we're going to take players back on loan or we sold them to someone.
No, I agree.
I agree with that. Right then, fellas. So final thing then, we'll move on to Tuesday. We've got a Norwich away on Tuesday night at Carrow Road. They lost against Plymouth 2-1. Gave Plymouth a bit of a hope to stay up. They've got 1 win in 5. Playoff game. The playoffs seem a bit lost for them now. They've got 52 points, I think. So like 8 points, I think. Is it 8 points or 9 points behind? So, Pete, in terms of Tuesday night, Mundo's looking like he probably won't play. Who comes in? Does Lefay slot in there in the left wing? Or does he swallow his pride and put Tommy Watson in because Lefay's just come back from injury, so we need to ease him back in?
I would say Lefay is the obvious choice. As much as we'd all love to see him playing in that 10 role just behind Isidore or Mayenda, whoever, he's done his magic out on the wing and he's created havoc. So as much as we'd love to see him in there, I think he's the obvious choice. Maybe just give him 60 minutes and then put somebody else in. Don't overtax him. But he's so mercurial on the ball. And Norwich are kind of on the back foot right now. They've got nothing to play for. We should go there and try and be as attack-minded as possible under a Labrie-type defensive mindset. And I just think Lefay just brings a different level of mindset and mentality to how we attack. And players want to find him. So I noticed, before he got injured, Job would find that left-hand pass, switching the point of attack so often to find Lefay. It was mesmerizing. And teams just back off. They put 2 and 3 players on him. So that leaves space elsewhere. So to me, he's the obvious choice.
Mm-hmm. Right, Craig. So as we're in a bit of a unique position, as we talked about earlier, it doesn't really matter if we win, lose, or draw. Well, I suppose it does in terms of momentum and all that. But what would you like to see from the match against Norwich on Tuesday night?
I think what we'll have a chance to do is I think we'll have a chance to play some decent football because they are a good passing team. They're the type of team I like us to play against because it's a bit more open. I've seen them. I think it was last week or the week before against Bristol City, and it was an excellent game. 2 really good passing teams. So I think we should play in opposition like that, and we should play in opposition like that away from home as well. So I just hope we can be a little bit more entertaining. The results the more important thing, but I hope I can just continue to get a bit more confidence back in the team. And a lot of tomorrow is going to be about how the team sets up, as you say. Will he play my end up front to give Isidore a bit of a rest? Will he play him on the left? Do you know what I mean? So I think it'll be a very open game. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few goals, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going, so it isn't about win, lose, or draw.
Good man. You got your ticket in the end, did you? Good man.
So I'm very much looking forward to it. But no, I think, and it's always a good away trip there as well, Norwich. So I think that I can say it's been a really good game, and I think they're definitely the type of team that I enjoy seeing us play against a bit more,
On that note, then, because you're going to the match, let me write down your prediction.
Well, because I think there'll be a few goals. I think, but we'll always win by 1. I think we'll win 2-1.
2-1, right? Okay, brilliant. Peter, final word. What's your prediction for Tuesday?
I would say 3-1
to us.
I think Norwich plays to us. 1-3 if you want to put it that way. I think, like Craig said, Norwich. That's why I'm kind of excited. If Bristol City stay in that, hopefully Coventry don't get in. And Bristol City stay there. I like this open football, and we play well against it. But Craig, let me know if you ever need a ticket. I've got a couple of contacts.
No, that might come in very handy sometime. I'm just glad I'm travelling there from Stockholm via Stansted because I think that's a quicker way to Norwich than from Sunderland, to be honest.
Top stuff, lads.
I've done it before from Sunderland. I'm sure it's a longer trip for them lads coming down on the bus than what it's for me.
Probably. Right. Well, I'm going to go for a hat trick of 1-0 wins. So, I think we'll go for another 1-0 win. All right. Anyway, gentlemen, very grateful for your time this evening, this morning for you, Pete. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the week, and how are the lads?
How are the lads?
Thanks
fellas.
Take
Appreciate
care.
it.